Donald Trump's legal team is back in federal court and taking direct aim at the prosecutor in a classified documents case. The former president is arguing that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed as the special counsel. Smith has brought charges against Trump in both Florida as well as right here in Washington, D.C. Joining us now, CNN senior crime and justice reporter Katelyn Polantz. Katelyn, walk us through what is happening in court today.
Well, Wolf, Donald Trump isn't there in person, but we're more than an hour into this hearing, and it's Judge Cannon listening to legal arguments about a topic she wanted to hear quite a lot about: the authority and the validity of the special counsel's office, their ability under the Constitution to bring a charge against someone like Donald Trump or anyone, really. This is an issue that other judges have heard arguments on or even just looked at because defense teams like Trump's have brought it before them, and they dismissed these sorts of things very quickly and said, no, this isn't a valid legal argument. Special counsel's offices can bring cases in the Justice Department, in the federal system, and take them on to trial. But Judge Cannon wants to hear hours of arguments on this, not just from the special counsel's office and Donald Trump's team and his co-defendants' teams, but also from law professors, people that have nothing to do with this case, but told her that they have opinions that they want to share about it. That is so unusual in any case, Wolf, especially at the trial level, especially in a criminal case. But there's Judge Cannon hearing this in the first of 3 days of arguments on things she's going to have to figure out before trial, but how long that may be and when that trial may happen. A lot of question marks there.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the current mainstream liberal media meltdown over Judge Aileen Cannon. And to me, it sounds like a whole lot of hate and bigotry going on here against an immigrant woman who came to this country and achieved the American dream and became a federal judge, because a lot of these people in the mainstream liberal media are criticizing her for slow walking the Trump classified document case that has been bought by Special Counsel Jack Smith. Now, again, the issue here is that the mainstream liberal media has told us two things in the past, okay, that you're not supposed to do, okay? One, you're not supposed to question the legal system, okay, or judge, right? You're not supposed to do that, okay? You were not supposed to question Judge Merchan and whether or not he was a political operative on behalf of the Democrat Party, even though he donated to the Democrat Party and anti-Trump initiatives, and his daughter basically works for the Democrat Party. No, you're not supposed to question that, okay? You're not supposed to question all the strange decisions that he made throughout the hush money trial in order to get Trump convicted. No. If you question that, then you are a threat, right? It's dangerous, okay? You're trying to undermine the judicial system, right? This is what they argue. Unless you're a conservative judge, right? If you're a conservative judge, then it's free game, okay? You can get all the criticism in the world, even if it's not justified, okay? If the mainstream liberal media doesn't like you, then they'll go after you. They also told us that you're not supposed to question so-called women of color, okay? If you question the experience and the abilities of a so-called woman of color to do her job, then you're a racist and you're a sexist and you hate women of color. Except if you are a conservative woman of color, then it's open season, right? The left, they are free to question your qualifications and whether or not you should actually have your job if you are a conservative so-called woman of color. And that is what's happening to Judge Aileen Cannon. The mainstream liberal media is questioning her, even though she's a woman of color and a judge, which, again, are two things that you're not supposed to question according to the left, okay, when it's leftists, okay, when it's Democrats, because she is taking her time and doing due diligence to make sure that the classified documents case, the trial against Trump, goes fairly, right? They're upset, okay? They're so upset, the establishment, that you had two judges come out like last year or something, and they privately urged Aileen Cannon to step down from the case, right? Just decline, okay? You don't want to actually preside over this case. And she said, no. I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to do my job and to make sure that this trial is conducted fairly. And again, this story coming out makes the mainstream media lose their minds because, again, this is more fuel for their fire to try to force this woman to be removed from this case due to the mob being outraged about how long she's taking in order to get this case to trial, not because they actually want the trial to be fair or to be done correctly. They just want Trump convicted before the election. And again, this story of Judge Aileen Cannon denying these federal judges and their request to have her remove herself, along with the fact that she is hearing arguments from legal scholars on why Jack Smith is not qualified to be on this case. Yeah, you can imagine. MSNBC is, they're not too happy about this.
What we're seeing here is a judge who had 4, I think, criminal trials since she was appointed. She did not have a long track record as a litigator even before she was appointed. And her instincts are poor, and they're forcing her to entertain these ridiculous arguments that really don't merit the time that they're spending. And the net result is delay, and justice deferred, justice delayed, really prejudicial for the special counsel, but also for the people of the United States who have a big decision to make.
Maybe I want to associate myself with your refusing to go that final step. But I struggle because incompetence should be blind, right? Incompetence should harm all sides equally. And the truth is, Judge Aileen Cannon's conduct has only harmed Jack Smith.
Yeah, absolutely right. No question. That's why so many people say, well, there must be some sort of nefarious motive here because her incompetence is favoring one side. There are a lot of cases that the stakes are so high. You see this a lot in capital cases, that judges bend over backwards to provide procedural due process and a thorough opportunity for the defendant when the stakes are so high to raise every possible argument, to err on the side of being completely fair. Again, I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt here on intention, but the net result is the same. The net result is, as you've said, Nicole, very, very beneficial to the former president. When he is staring at allegations, I agree with Ty Cobb, I agree with Bill Barr, there is a very, very strong evidence that we have seen already on the face of the indictment.
Yeah, so again, that's a hilarious clip in my opinion, right? Because what they're talking about is Judge Aileen Cannon not only deciding not to step down, not to recuse herself, because she shouldn't have to, right? There's no bias here, right, at all. But also to hear arguments for why Jack Smith is not qualified to be on the case, right? She's hearing these arguments, and she's letting legal scholars come in and to make arguments. I honestly feel like this is just her being intellectually curious and making sure that, hey, I am doing the right thing, okay? That I'm making the right decision here, and I'm hearing everybody's arguments in order to make sure that this is done as fairly as possible, right? That's kind of what it seems like to me. That is what this legal analyst on MSNBC was arguing after Nicole Wallace basically asked him his opinion on the situation. But then Nicole Wallace, she didn't like that, right? She was upset because she was like, no, you have to speak to her intention, right? You have to say that she is biased in favor of Trump, which again, you're not supposed to say about Judge Merchan and the fact that he was making a bunch of decisions that seemed to benefit Alvin Bragg in the prosecution, okay? But no, you're not supposed to question that. If you say that Judge Merchan is biased, then you are a dangerous person, right? But when it comes to Aileen Cannon, Nicole Wallace is saying, listen, you better say that she's biased, right? You better come out here and say that she is in the bag for Trump, right? You need to say it, okay? And of course, MSNBC's legal analyst, he jumps up and down and does the tap dance. Oh, no, you're right. I agree. She's being biased, but I'm just trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Again, this guy clearly just outlined just a perfectly logical explanation of why Judge Aileen Cannon would take so long, because again, you see in cases of significant importance, like for example, capital cases, yeah, the judges bend over backwards to make sure everything is done fairly, even if it seems like something that is redundant or has already kind of been settled by the courts. They make sure they go over it and that they're hearing every possible defense because they want to make sure it's done right, okay? And when you talk about a case involving the former president of the United States, you would think that this would count as a case where, yeah, you might want to take your time, right? You don't really want to rush this. You want to make sure that it's done correctly so that people aren't questioning it like people are questioning the outcome of what happened in New York, which was a rush job, okay, to get the president convicted on trumped up charges. But no, logic, facts, reasoning, not allowed on MSNBC, okay? You cannot have any type of logical explanation for why the judge is trying to take her time with something that is unprecedented, okay, like, for example, charging a former president, you can't use logic to try to explain it. It has to be that she is biased in favor of Trump, okay? But that doesn't stop CNN's legal analyst, Eli Honig, who the analysts at MSNBC actually hate because he's not as biased as they are. He came out and basically was shocked that some of these judges asked Aileen Cannon to step down, to recuse herself. But the reality is that she's not going to do it. And also the reality is that this case is probably not happening before the election. No matter how much MSNBC boohoo whines and cries right about Aileen Cannon, she ain't going nowhere.
Are you a little shocked to see this New York Times reporting that fellow judges, even senior judges in her jurisdiction, have been saying, hey, maybe you should step aside here. Maybe this is not, where you should be right now.
I'm surprised on a couple levels.
Yeah.
First of all, judges do talk like any other colleagues at work about what do you think of this? What should I do here? It would probably be a smart idea for Judge Cannon to talk to some more experienced judges. More junior judges do this all the time. Hey, what do you make of this issue? But for multiple more senior judges to say you may be in over your head here is really unusual. But I should say, if she were to step away for that reason, she's not going to, that would be completely unprecedented. I've never heard of a federal judge saying, I'm removing myself, not because of a conflict of interest, but because I'm not up to it. That would be a very strange result.
And the complicating factor in all of this is that, let's say she rules in a way that Jack Smith doesn't like, goes to the Court of Appeals. In some doomsday scenario, the Court of Appeals pulls Judge Cannon off the case. That effectively also delays the case because a new judge would have to come in. In a scenario, it makes it very difficult for this classified documents case to get to trial before the election.
Yeah, I think the chances of that are close to zero. Yeah. Now, important to know, it's very rare to see a judge forcefully removed from a case. It does happen occasionally. The first thing that would typically have to happen, though, is Jack Smith, the prosecutor, would have to ask for it. And prosecutors are very wary of doing that. One, because you don't want to look like you're judge shopping. Two, because it's kind of dicey if you say, Court of Appeals, I'd like you to remove Judge Acosta, and the Court of Appeals says no, and then you got to go back in front of Judge Acosta, hypothetically.
Yeah.
So Jack Smith has
I
not
can see
made
that happening.
Yeah, well, you would be a different... Not having a law degree, I think, would be a problem.
Might be tough.
But Jack Smith has not made that move yet. But I do think if Judge Cannon rules that he's improperly appointed, that would be a shocking ruling and might give him a basis to ask, A, to reverse her, and B, to remove her.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? Also, what the mainstream liberal media is freaking out about is the Supreme Court, okay? They're also questioning the Supreme Court. They're actively trying to undermine the Supreme Court, destroy the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is conservative, right? The Supreme Court issues opinions that they don't agree with, and they also are mad at the Supreme Court for taking their time and making sure that things are done correctly as well, because, again, they want to rush this trial to happen against Trump, specifically, again, the Jack Smith trials. So now they are attacking the Supreme Court for not issuing a quick decision on the question of presidential immunity, which, again, is uncharted and unprecedented territory when it comes to this topic.
The federal election case brought by Special Counsel Jack Smith has been on hold for more than 6 months now. That in itself a victory for Trump, as he uses every lever of the justice system available to any criminal defendant to his advantage, with a single goal: to avoid standing trial before the election in November, at which point, if he prevails and is elected, he can dismiss the felony counts he faces for attempting a coup. As we have pointed out on this program before, every day that goes by without a decision one way or the other from the Supreme Court is a victory for Trump. It's a day that Trump gets closer to his goal. It's a glaring delay for many other reasons as well. We also know that the court is entirely capable of moving quickly if and when they want to. In the other big case involving the ex-president and the election this year, on the question of whether Trump could be on the ballot at all because of a clause in the 14th Amendment that bans insurrectionists from holding office, the Supreme Court was super speedy. It delivered a decision just 2 months after Trump's appeal to the Supreme Court. The New York Times reports this as well, quote, in addition to the disqualification case, 2.5 years ago, the court scheduled a challenge to the Biden administration's test or vaccinate policy 2 weeks after the justices decide to hear it, and then issued a decision invalidating the policy less than a week later. Add to that the fact that the court heard just 61 cases this term. That's what the Wall Street Journal says is, quote, close to a historic low. So a pattern exists, has emerged. Speed, something they're capable of, something they've done very recently. It's a priority for them if and when it benefits Donald Trump and his MAGA movement.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? So the mainstream liberal media is doing exactly what they told us you're not supposed to do, which is to engage in conspiracy theories about the legal system, right? I mean, they're quite literally pushing a conspiracy theory that the Supreme Court is slow-walking these cases to help Trump, right? And they are fast-tracking cases that hurt Biden and Democrats, right? This is what they're saying. But again, according to Eli Honig, the legal analyst at CNN, who, again, MSNBC hates, okay? They all hate this guy. He said, no, there's actually nothing nefarious going on here. This is actually pretty normal for the Supreme Court when it comes to this type of case to take this much time to get it right.
So as of Tuesday, 110 days had passed since the court had agreed to hear the Trump immunity case. And in the Watergate case, took 54 days once it reached the high court. This is how a New York Times opinion piece was said about this. It said something's rotten about the justices taking so long on Trump's immunity case. Something rotten?
I respectfully dissent from that view. I do not think something's necessarily rotten or erroneous or out of the ordinary. Let's put this in perspective. Watergate was a different era. The Supreme Court just doesn't function like that anymore. And Watergate involved the sitting president under an active criminal investigation. I understand the stakes here, but let's put this in perspective. The Trump immunity case, first of all, was the last case argued. All the other cases that Joan referenced were all argued many months before. Second of all, it's completely normal to get this sort of case dump in late June, sometimes into early July. This is when we get the big decisions. Third of all, everyone relax. We are going to have this opinion within maybe tomorrow, maybe within a week, but sometime really soon. And finally, if you look at the actual time frame here, the Trump immunity decision was rendered at the district court, Judge Chutkan, in December. To go from a district court ruling to a Supreme Court ruling in 7 months is lightning speed. I understand everyone wants this as soon as possible. I understand the widely felt, not universal, but widely felt desire to get this case back to the district court. So if there's going to be a trial, it can be held before the election. But I think people are sort of maybe venting some anxiety inappropriately at the Supreme Court. And by the way, if you want to vent at somebody, look at DOJ, who took 2.5 years to charge this case, not the Supreme Court that's taking a grand total of a few months to decide it.
Some Democrats would agree with that.
Yeah, so this guy is basically saying, without actually saying it, look, guys, check your Trump derangement, right? Your Trump derangement is getting in the way of what we all know is a normal process, right? There's nothing nefarious going on here. You guys just want Trump to be convicted as soon as possible before the election so that it can sway the outcome of the election, but that doesn't mean that the Supreme Court is biased towards Trump, right? It just means that they're doing their job. You're talking about a case involving presidential immunity. Again, this is uncharted territory, right? I mean, you have to get it right, okay? This decision really matters, especially when you're talking about the future president and their actions, okay? This is something that the Supreme Court, they talked about during the hearing, right? How important this is for the future. But again, the mainstream liberal media doesn't give a damn because they don't care about law and order or the rule of law or the criminal justice system being fair. They don't give a shit about that. All they care about is having Trump convicted. That's all they care about. All they care about is mob rule. The outrage over the fact that you have judges that are taking their time, doing their due diligence to get it right, when, again, they're in uncharted territory, again, it blows my mind. It really does. It's shameful. These people should be ashamed of themselves. They really should. Because again, if the shoe was on the other foot, we all know what they would be doing, right? If the right was, for example, criticizing a woman of color judge because, oh, well, she was taking too long. Oh, she is inexperienced. They be boohoo-wine and crown racism. They be saying, oh, you're just trying to rush the trial. That's what they be saying. But again, because the system is not benefiting them in the way that they want it, now all of a sudden, again, they're actively advocating to undermine the whole system. Do sloppy work, right? Do sloppy work. Who cares if the trial is fair? Just get them convicted. This is what these people are saying. This is what they're spewing on their airwaves. But these are the same people that will lecture you on the criminal justice system and how you must respect it, no matter what decisions are made, you must respect it when they get their way, right? But when they don't get their way, these same people are actively undermining the system. Again, it's crazy the hypocrisy that comes from these individuals. It's almost as if they just forgot that just 3 weeks ago, they were all lecturing the world about how you have to respect the process in New York and Judge Merchan and Alvin Bragg. But now all of a sudden, that trial didn't work, right? That conviction didn't actually move the needle. Now these people jumping up and down trying to essentially say, no. Supreme Court justices need to be removed. You need to remove conservative federal court judges because they don't agree with us, right? And they must be biased and they're in the bag for Trump and all this other stuff that, again, they told us you're not supposed to say. It just tells you just how much these people are just full of it, right? They're so full of it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.